Welcome to Left Africa.
Imagine building a billion-dollar tech company that's just totally outpacing competitors in places like Austin, Texas, or Tel Aviv.
Right.
You've got the talent, you have global venture capital pouring in, a booming market.
Sounds like the dream.
Yeah, exactly. But now imagine your biggest obstacle isn't your competitors at all. It's actually your own government.
Wow. Okay.
A government that, retroactively taxes you for rules that literally didn't exist 3 years ago and legally burns 15% of your funding the very moment it crosses the border.
Ouch.
Yeah. So welcome to Lagos, Nigeria. And whether you're catching up on global markets or just insanely curious about the future of tech, you've come to the right place for your custom-tailored deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, our mission is to focus on this fascinating dossier we've got. It's titled Lagos Tech Hub, World's Fastest Growth, Government in the Way. We're really unpacking this massive, almost unbelievable contradiction happening right now as of June 2026.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial to just establish some parameters up front before we tear into the mechanics of the situation.
For sure.
Because the source material here, it presents a highly critical, well-documented view of the Nigerian state's regulatory and economic policies.
Right.
So, as always, our mission here isn't to take a political side or, endorse any specific ideology. Our goal is strictly to impartially break down the facts, the actual policy mechanisms, and the arguments laid out in this dossier. So you, listening, can fully grasp the forces at play in this multi-billion-dollar ecosystem.
Exactly. And let me just jump in with the staggering numbers from the source, because the data from Startup Genome's 2025 report paints a very specific picture.
The velocity is insane.
It really is. They officially ranked Lagos #1 in global growth velocity. We're looking at a city that pulled in $1.2 billion in venture capital funding in 2024 alone.
$1.2 billion.
Yeah, and harboring over 400 active tech startups. And the irony here is that this success is being heavily marketed by the state.
Oh, heavily.
Like just this month, June 2026, Governor Sanwo-Olu's administration took Nigeria's largest ever delegation to VivaTech Paris, which is, one of Europe's premier tech summits.
Yeah, a huge deal in the tech world.
They set up these massive booths, pitching Lagos as Africa's Silicon Valley, handing out materials, attributing this explosive growth to their, quote, progressive policies.
Right, and they were showcasing these homegrown unicorns that are legitimately reshaping global commerce.
Totally.
You have Flutterwave, valued at over $3 billion. You have Paystack, and Move, which is a mobility fintech company that's aggressively expanding into Europe and the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
On paper, at a conference in Paris, it looks like this masterclass in state-sponsored innovation.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading this dossier, it feels like a government taking credit for a beautiful blooming garden that they're actively spraying with weed killer.
That's the perfect analogy.
They want the flashy headlines, but at home, they're basically poisoning the soil.
Right. And that tension between international prestige and domestic control is really the central theme here. The dossier explains that the state views the Lagos tech scene through a totally fractured lens.
How so?
Well, internationally, these startups are trophies, right? They attract foreign direct investment, they signal rapid modernization to the West, and, well, they just look fantastic in a sovereign wealth brochure.
Sure.
But domestically, that very same ecosystem represents a profound threat to legacy power structures.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that economic logic, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Why would any state view a billion-dollar engine of domestic growth as a threat?
It comes down to what these startups are actually building.
Okay.
When citizens construct alternative digital financial systems, encrypted communication networks, independent logistics platforms, they are fundamentally bypassing traditional state controls. Government wants the prestige, and they absolutely want the incoming capital, but they want it flowing strictly through their legacy frameworks, on their terms. And when it doesn't, the regulatory apparatus steps in to, force compliance.
Which perfectly transitions us to the first mechanism of that control. To understand the weed killer in this analogy, we really have to look at how they handled the money of the future.
Yes, the crypto situation.
The crypto paradox here is just fascinating because the dossier details the reality on the ground. According to Chainalysis data from 2024, Nigeria ranks #2 globally for crypto adoption.
Number 2 in the world.
Second only to India.
And we really have to understand the why behind that adoption, because it's not what a lot of people think.
It's not just day trading meme coins.
Exactly. Young Nigerians aren't just trading digital assets for speculation. They're using crypto as a vital, everyday hedge against devastating inflation.
Right.
It's a cheap mechanism to send cross-border remittances and honestly just a stable store of value. Because the national currency, the Naira, it lost roughly 70% of its value over a 2-year period.
That is brutal.
It's catastrophic. So citizens just adapted simply to survive the macroeconomic environment.
So the citizens innovate this survival mechanism, and the Central Bank of Nigeria responds with a de facto ban.
Yes.
The dossier mentions that even with a supposed soft lift of the ban in December 2023, the reality is entirely different. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, in practice, it created an illusion of progress while keeping the blockade totally intact.
Got it.
To get a bank account, a crypto firm needs a provisional license from the Securities and Exchange Commission. But as of mid-2026, the SEC has issued exactly one provisional license.
Hey, really, just one?
Just one, to a company called Quidax. The entire rest of the sector is paralyzed in this legal gray zone. You have the second highest public adoption rate on the planet, yet the industry is effectively locked out of the formal banking system.
So because they were locked out, these startups pivoted to generate revenue elsewhere. But the dossier points out that once they became profitable doing so, the state found a new way to catch them.
The tax squeeze.
Right, the aggressive digital taxation. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, the FIRS, spent 2025 and 2026 expanding withholding taxes, especially targeting SaaS platforms.
Software as a service.
Yeah. But expanding the tax base is one thing. It's the mechanism they use that's so destructive. They are doing retroactive audits on foreign income dating all the way back to 2020.
Yeah, that's the part that's truly damaging.
But let me push back on that narrative for a second.
Sure.
Because aren't tech hubs all over the world, from the EU to the US, facing massive tax crackdowns right now? Like, is Lagos really unique in wanting to tax its most successful sector?
What's fascinating here is the distinction between standard taxation and retroactive taxation, especially on a sector with razor-thin margins.
Okay, unpack that.
Standard taxation allows a business to plan, but retroactive taxation is basically a time-traveling liability.
A time-traveling liability. I like that phrase.
Think about a startup in 2021. You follow the laws as written. You take your thin margins and reinvest every cent into growth, hiring local engineers, expanding servers.
Burning capital to capture market share.
Right, exactly. Then, 5 years later, in 2026, the government needs short-term liquidity. So they change the interpretation of the rules and apply them backward to your 2021 income.
Wow.
They're demanding cash you already spent half a decade ago. The dossier argues it's not just the tax rate itself, it's the sheer unpredictability of taxing companies for rules that didn't exist when the revenue was made. It's structurally lethal.
And as damaging as that time-traveling tax is, the expert points out that it's just a secondary headache compared to the absolute crisis of simply trying to bring operational capital into the country.
The ultimate bottleneck.
The ultimate bottleneck, the foreign exchange crisis.
Yeah, this is the most damaging regulatory failure outlined in the source. We need to look at the NAFEM, the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market. It's the official state-run market where currencies are supposed to be exchanged, but it relies on the central bank providing enough U.S. dollars to meet the demand of businesses.
And they just don't have the dollars.
Exactly. The official market severely lacks liquidity.
So let's translate the math here for you listening, because this is wild. Imagine you raise $1 million from investors to build your dream company. But the moment you try to use it to pay your local staff, you can't use the official market.
Because the dollars aren't there.
Right. So you're forced into the parallel market, the unofficial exchange rate. And that comes with a 10 to 15% premium.
Yep.
So the state's dysfunctional currency system legally incinerates $150,000 of your funding instantly. You've lost 15% before buying a single desk.
It acts as a state-mandated entry toll. And the downstream effects of that incinerated capital are severe, especially when we talk about the human cost.
Tell me about the human cost.
Because the Naira lost 70% of its value, founders simply can't afford essential dollar-denominated tools anymore.
Like what?
Consider Amazon Web Services, AWS. Cloud infrastructure is your lifeblood, and they bill in US dollars. So your server costs effectively triple overnight, while your local revenue stays entirely flat.
So founders have to cannibalize other parts of the business just to keep the servers running.
Exactly. Freezing salaries, halting hiring, which directly triggers a massive brain drain.
Oh, of course.
Senior engineers living in Lagos look at the exchange rate and they realize their local salary simply cannot sustain them, so they flee for remote US dollar-paying jobs just to survive.
Starved of capital at the border and starved of talent at home. It's unbelievable that a globally recognized tech hub is left to fend for itself like this. Which brings up a huge question.
What's that?
Didn't the government literally pass a law to fix these exact problems?
Yes. The Nigeria Startup Act of 2022.
Right. When it passed, it was totally hyped up.
It was universally heralded, but the dossier categorizes it as a zombie law.
A zombie law? Why?
Because it's a completely hollow promise.
Okay.
Let's look at the crown jewel of the act, the 10 billion Naira seed fund.
Okay, a dedicated sovereign fund. Sounds great.
In theory. But the 2024 and 2025 federal budgets allocated literally 0 Naira to this fund. Not a single cent. And the dedicated secretariat. It has fewer than 10 staff members. The promised tax incentives are completely ignored by the tax authorities, and the consultative forum hasn't even met since early 2024.
So what does this all mean? If the government is actively suffocating them, and the laws meant to help are essentially zombies, why is Lagos still the fastest growing hub on Earth? How is it actually surviving?
This is where the dossier delivers its most critical insight. The true engine of the Lagos tech hub isn't policy, it's desperation. Desperation as fuel.
Wow.
Yeah. You're looking at a 33% youth unemployment rate according to the MBS Q1 2025 statistics.
33%.
Building a startup, there isn't a Silicon Valley lifestyle choice, you know? It's a fundamental survival strategy. You combine that existential drive with a massive diaspora network and dense engineering talent, and something incredible happens.
What's that?
State failure literally becomes the market.
Oh, I see.
The state's inability to deliver services creates these massive lucrative vacuums.
Right, like CUDA.
Exactly. CUDA became a massive digital bank because traditional banking was broken. Or they became a thriving edtech platform because the public education system has profound failures.
Building a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem on top of government failure is an incredible, almost unbelievable feat.
It really is.
But is this dynamic isolated to Nigeria, or is this the blueprint for the entire continent?
Zooming out, the dossier maps a very clear continent-wide pattern, the Pan-African ripple effect. Where governments regulate most, tech flourishes least.
Give me some examples.
Well, take Kenya. Nairobi is a brilliant ecosystem. But driven by a sovereign debt crisis, they introduced a growth-killing 1.5% digital services tax.
Ouch.
Not on profit, on gross revenue.
That's rough.
And then added a 3% minimum top-up tax on top of that.
Wow.
Or look at Ghana with their highly disruptive e-levy on digital transfers, or South Africa where startups have to battle the massive Eskom power crisis, literally keeping the lights on along with incredibly complex fintech licensing.
So the parking brake is basically being pulled all over the continent.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When you look at all these examples, the startups in this dossier aren't asking their governments for subsidies.
No, not at all.
They aren't asking for handouts or even the special startup acts anymore. They are just begging for the state to get out of the way.
Precisely.
To stop banning crypto, to fix the Forex markets, and to stop moving the goalposts on taxes.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the dossier provides the clearest possible evidence for policy advocates.
Which is?
African citizens have the raw talent and the drive to build world-leading tech economies. But currently, they are doing it in spite of their governments, not because of them.
Yeah.
It is citizen-led innovation locked in a persistent battle against state obstruction.
Well, this has been an incredible journey to unpack for you all today. From the massive VC funding and global accolades at VivaTech to the harsh realities of crypto bans, parallel currency markets, and zombie legislation.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But the ultimate takeaway really is a testament to the sheer resilience and talent of Lagos's entrepreneurs. I mean, they've turned state failure into a multi-billion-dollar global juggernaut.
They absolutely have. But, looking at all of this leaves me with one final kind of unmentioned thought to mull over.
Oh, let's hear it.
The dossier makes it clear that government failure creates the very gaps these startups are filling, right?
Right.
But consider this. If the Nigerian state were to suddenly wake up tomorrow and perfectly fix its banking, its currency, and its public infrastructure, would this booming startup ecosystem lose its primary fuel?
Oh.
Or would removing those state-mandated lead boots finally allow Lagos Tech to just completely conquer the rest of the globe.
Man, that is a provocative thought.
Eh.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Remember, the best way to avoid information overload is to keep exploring these crucial blind spots. Keep questioning the narrative, and we'll catch you next time.